Hello. Let's see, I'm gonna adjust this just a little bit now that we're live. Hi. Okay. So glad that we are doing a live today. And just double checking that everything is up on the screen. Okay, so thank you for joining me, and I wanted to give a live event for from my Jam-a-thorn page. Usually I do these live events a couple times a month in my Jam-a-thorn student group, and that's one of the perks of being a Jam-a-thorn student for the all access curriculum. And so I wanted people to see what it's like to have a live with me. And I also wanted to use this opportunity to introduce my latest book, The Key of D, which is a collaboration with my partner Heather Kraft, who did all of these stunning visuals that are in the book. So yay, some people are joining in. If you're here, go ahead and say hi to me so I know you're here. And I think Mark Thatcher's here. Hey, Mark, excellent to see you. Thanks for joining in. So yeah, Key of D is often a lot of fiddlers' favorite key. There are lots of other instruments who love the key of D as well. But this is like a fiddle favorite. And so we started off with Key of A. I have a Key of A book, so back here as well. So if you like other keys are coming. But the Key of D, I wanted to give you an idea of what this new book is about and to demonstrate how you might use it in your practice. I thought I would go over some chords to a really popular bluegrass song, the Old Homeplace. Yeah, let's do the Old Homeplace, and some of the kind of iconic recordings of this that I've listened to are Tony Rice, and Mark loves this tune. Yeah. Irish Trad loves Key of D. Yes, totally. Absolutely. Tin whistles. Yeah. I've listened to Tony Rice with Ricky Skaggs and J.D. Crowe, maybe Jerry, I'm trying to remember. And the Dillards did this song. It's just a really great bluegrass song that I actually don't perform a lot, but so often those recordings I think are like in B flat or B, and that's a key that I would normally sing the harmony on. So I'm going to do it in the key of D today, where I hope sing the melody a little bit. And hey Heather, hello, I'm so glad you're joining us. Woohoo! Yeah, I gave a shout out to Heather earlier about this amazingly beautiful book that she made my scribblings, my hand scratches, and all my little diagrams into such a really incredible resource for all of us. So yeah, these books would not be possible. Jam-a-thorn would not be possible these days without Heather Kraft. So hey Michael, woohoo! So yeah, we're gonna do the Key of D, which obviously the book is in. Old Homeplace uses more than the traditional 3 chords. A lot of people who are working with chords are familiar with the fact, or starting to become familiar with the idea that if you use numbers to learn chord progressions, you can take those chord progressions and move them to lots of different keys, and that's what we're going to be doing today. And most often, the 3 chords that are used in a very ubiquitous way are the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. And we call them those numbers because those chords are based off of the 1st note of the scale, the 4th note of the scale, or the 5th note of the scale. So those are really common, and we are going to use the 1, 4, and the 5, but we're also going to use the major 3 and the major 2 chord, which are borrowed chord. They use a borrowed note. And so they don't naturally occur in the key of D major. So that's what's kind of fun, and I explain what that means in the book. And so I want to kind of have a little bit of a story hour today, tell you a little bit about how I'm explaining the chords so you can hear them and recognize them, know why we use them, why we would use more than the 1, 4, and the 5, and then we're going to voice them. The back of the book is full of worksheets for you to work on tunes yourself, and so we're going to use those worksheets and voice the chord progression for Old Homeplace today. So instead of working on like learning the melody, learning a bluegrass solo, that's not what today's session is about. Today is you understanding what the chord progression is, how to play those chords, and then that will help you play backup. It will help you come up with a solo, understand what you're hearing. It's kind of the stepping stones of what you would need to do if you were trying to figure out a solo on your own. Or take a solo from like one of those iconic recordings that might be in a different key and say, okay, now I know the key, I understand it in the key of D, let me move it to this key, transposing and all that. All right, so thank you for joining me today. Let's get started. So key of D book starts off with a little bit of an introduction and an overview of what we're going to base the book on, which is scales in the key of D. And the site has 2 free workbooks, the major scale workbook and the minor scale workbook, that goes into detail of how to build scales. And both of those workbooks go over the D major scale and the 3 D minor scales in a lot of detail. And so this first kind of beautiful arc or arch compares the 4 different D scales, because we will be using these notes to build chords on. So we could either build notes, we could build chords built on the D major scale, based on the D major scale, or we could build chords based on any of the D minor scales. So that's kind of comparing this. We talk about how to spell chords, skipping over every note of the alphabet. And then we get started with the first note of the D major scale. So as a really, really tiny, tiny introduction for when we're doing a major scale, we're in D major today. So when we're building a D major scale or any kind of major scale, the half steps are always going to fall between the 3rd and the 4th note and the 7th and the 1st note. So I want you to grab your instruments and find a D, and we're going to play D, which is the first note, E, which is the second note. Let me get my hand in the frame here. D, E, 2, 3, and then a half step to 4, 5, 6, 7, half step to 1. 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's our D scale, which feels really great on the fiddle. Everybody knows it and loves it. And those notes, you'll have noticed that you feel the half step between your middle and your ring finger. Those are the 3rd and the 4th notes, and the 7th and the 1st notes. Okay, so D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So that's what we're mostly using, and we're going to be basing our chords off of those notes. So the first note, the 1 chord that we're going to work on today, is based off the first note of the D scale, and we can spell it every other one, D, F sharp, A, and how they're color coded it so we can see that. And then on the next page, I'm going to bring this over just a little bit so you can see it, and I think I might tilt it too, forgive me. So this next page is a map of a fingerboard of instruments tuned in fifths. So that would include cellos, violas, mandolins, and violins or fiddles. And so, hey, Thad, good morning. Yay, you've got the D book already. And I think I saw that Michael said that he had it too. Woohoo, thank you guys. So this has the C string, G string, D, A, and E. So if you don't have I'm a 5-string player, so I have all of these strings. But if you don't have a 5-string, you can just eliminate whatever string you don't have. So if you're a cellist or a violist, you're gonna watch these 4 strings. Okay, and if you are not a C-string person and you're an E-string person, like mandolin or fiddle player, you're gonna start on the G-string column and follow all the way over to the E string. These maps are built in for first position. So there are lots more notes down here, but we're just gonna stay in first position. So like up to your pinky, okay? That's where we're going. And then now these notes are the notes that you find in the D scale, and then the color-coded notes are the notes that are in the D chord. So the first step would be to play the D scale all over your fingerboard, the entire range. And remember, the major scale download does that. And then saying the notes so you really know the fingerboard. And then you say, okay, I've said all the notes in the scale. Now I will figure out the notes that are in the D chord. D chord and D arpeggio are the same exact thing. It's just that when you play the notes that are D, F sharp, A, one after another, it's an arpeggio. And if you play them all at once, it's a chord. So right now we are going to play our D arpeggios all over our instrument. And so if you don't have a C string, hold up just a second and join in on the third note. Okay, so we're going to play all the Ds, all the F sharps, and all the A's. So the first note that's on the C string that's in a D chord is a D. So that's your first finger. There's your D. And then your ring finger, your high third finger, is your F sharp. And then E string people, you can join in on this A. That's right here, this A. And then your pinky plays a D, which is the same as the open D. And then the F sharp, pinky A, which is the same as open A. And then the D. And then the F sharp on the E string. And then the high A. Then let's play those in reverse. So we'll start on this high A and come down. So we have the high A, the F sharp, the D, the open A, same note as your pinky, F sharp, D, same note as your pinky, first finger A. Some of you will be done, but if you have a C string, you can keep going to the F sharp, and then the D. Okay, so those are all the notes that are in the D arpeggio or the D chord. The next step is to figure out how to play and combine those. Before we turn the page, I want to give you a little story about the D chord. If we're in the key of D, the D chord is the one chord because it's the first note of the scale. And the one chord's purpose is over here in this story form. And I know it's a little hard for you to see this, so I'm going to read it to you. So we start with the major one chord. The one chord is built on the first note of the major scale. The one chord's job or function is to let everyone know what key you are in. It's the home chord. You feel good and solid and centered when you're on the one. We often, but not always, begin on the one chord, but we almost always, let's say 92% of the time, end with it. It's a pretty important chord, and so chances are high that you will hear it a bunch. Since we're in D major, the one chord is also called D major. To spell the D major chord, and we already did that. Okay, so by the way, the 92% of the time, that's I do my own scientific research, so that number changes every time I try to talk about numbers, but sometimes it's 98% of the time, sometimes it's 87% of the time. It happens a lot. Okay, so that's the purpose of the one chord. So now we have to figure out ways to play the one chord. And on the next pages, there are pictures of all the different combinations that you can play the D, the F sharp, and the A on each set of your strings. So the first set is always the C and the G strings. So if you don't have a C and a G, if you don't have a C string, you can skip this. I'm going to go over to the next page, which is the G and the D strings, this map. And so I list out all the different ways that you can combine them, and then I show them. Okay, so these pictures are essentially this, the G and the D, and we've circled all the different ways you can combine those 2 or 3 notes, okay? So we have the lowest note on the G string is the A. You can play that with the open D. You can also play that A with the F sharp on the D string. You could play your pinky D with your open D. You could play that same pinky D with the F sharp. And you could play that same pinky D with the A, but oh boy, that would hurt. I'd probably just play the open D and the open A instead. But it's there, it's a possibility. So let's go through and play all those different ways to play the D chord. And instead of saying all the different ways, I call them voicings. Excuse me, just a sec. And we call them voicings because it's your choice. It's a choice of what notes in the chord that you're choosing to voice, to give voice to. Okay, so the first finger on the G string with the open D, that's the first voicing. And then if you keep the same A, but add the F sharp on the D string, another voicing of a D chord, otherwise known in this situation as a one chord. Okay, let's change. We're gonna play the pinky on the G string with the open D, so we get a unison sound. That is a very D-ish way to play a D chord. So if you keep that pinky down and you add the F sharp that you had previously played on the D string, that's a D chord, okay? And then if you keep the pinky down and you put on both strings, woo, you've got another D chord. That's the same as playing your open D and your open A. Okay, so at the beginning of your chord journey, you don't necessarily have to memorize all of those. You might pick your favorite, like maybe the first two, and really memorize those as a D chord and a one chord. You might pick one way to voice a chord on each different string. And then once you feel comfortable with that, then you add a second. Today I'm going to just demonstrate chords on the G and the D string, but just to give you an idea, I want to do a little bit of voicing on the D and the A string, okay, just for this one chord. So we're still playing the D chord, and we're still doing lots of different combinations of the D, the F sharp, and the A. So you could play the open D and the A, which is what I just showed. I demonstrated that that's easier than your pinky on both of the other strings. Open D and high D, then the F sharp on the D string with open A, F sharp on the D string with your high D, and then your pinky on the D string with that high D. So let's go ahead and play those 5 different voicings of the D chord. So we've got the open D and A. Okay, now play that same open D with the D on your A string. Alrighty, now let's play your F sharp, your middle finger on the D string with the open A. And if you keep playing that F sharp, but you add the high D, also a D chord. Now keep that same D down, the high D, but add your pinky back to the D string. You've got an A and a D. Ooh, let me get that in tune. There we go. All right, so we just learned, oh my goodness, how many different ways did we voice the D chord? 10 different ways to voice the D chord on those 2 sets of strings. So I want to break from this for just a sec, and I want to give you a little demonstration of Old Homeplace. I hope I sing it okay-ish enough for you guys. This is usually 2 verses and then a chorus, I think. But because this is not a song workshop, I'm just going to sing 1 verse and go right into the chorus. So, it's been 10 long years since I left my home in the hollow where I was born, where the cool fall nights make the wood smoke rise and the fox hunter blows his horn. It sounds weird to not do another verse, so I'll do another verse. I fell in love with a girl in the town. I thought that should be true. I went away to Charlottesville and worked in a sawmill too. What have they done with the old home place? Why did they tear it down? And why did I leave the plow in the field and look for a job in the town? I think I might have sung the harmony on the chorus there. I always sing the harmony on this tune. Forgive me. So if I mess up the melody a little bit there, but I didn't mess up the chords. So there are a lot of moving chords here, which is really fun. And actually, I just put my fiddle down, but I want to tell you what that chord progression is. So it goes 1, major 3, 2, 4, 1. And the major 3 is so fun because the major 3's job is to always deliver us to 4. So let's say you're trying to figure out how to play that, and I printed out this book because I'm a visual person and I like to hold things. I'm really old school. It's good for me when I'm doing demonstrations like this. It's good for me in my studio. But if you were to purchase this book, you would get it as an immediate PDF download. And when you download it and you're looking at the PDF, you can click on the table of contents. And when you click on the chord that you want, it's going to take you to that page. And if you want to get back to the table of contents at any time, you just click the logo at the bottom of the page. I don't know if you can see that. You click the logo at the bottom of the page, and that takes you back to the table of contents. So let's say you want to go to the 3 chord, because that's what's next. You can look at your table of contents. The 3 chord, the major 3, is F sharp major, and you go to page 62. I'm going in the order of the chord progression. Normally I teach the function of 1, 4, and 5 first. So let's jump for just a sec. We talk about how 1, 4, and 5 are the common chords that we learn first, and so we talked about how the 1 chord's job is the home chord. The 4 chord is the travel chord. It's my favorite chord. It's like if you got to get away from the 1 chord, chances are very high that you're moving to the 4 chord. And then the 5 chord has 2 jobs. Its most important job is the penultimate chord, as the 5, 1, we're done, and it signals that we're ending things. Sometimes the 5 chord also happens halfway through a song to let everybody know that you're not done yet. It kind of feels like a question of sorts. So those are really, really important for you to feel and hear those chords first, and then start collecting other chords. And so this new chord that we're talking about is the major 3 chord. And the 3 chord's job, let me read to you a little bit, story time. So I say, like the minor 3, the major 3 is built off the 3rd note of the major scale. 1, 2, 3, that's F sharp. But we borrow a note from another scale to change the chord quality to major. In the key of D major, the 3rd note is F sharp, so we'll build an F sharp major chord. To spell an F sharp major chord, we'll start an F sharp and collect every other note of the D major scale. That would be F sharp, A, and C sharp. But, as we know, assuming that you've looked at the F sharp minor chord, this spells an F sharp minor chord, so we'll raise the middle note of the chord to A sharp, and the A sharp is the borrowed chromatic note. Now we've built a major chord based on the 3rd note of the scale. So we have F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. And then over here on this side, it's the map of the entire fingerboard, all of the F sharps, all of the A sharps, all of the C sharps that are on your fingerboard. So what I would like to do right now is just show you where all of those are, and then we're going to jump to the G and the D strings and find a couple voicings of the major 3 / F sharp major chord. So you've got the C sharp. Can we see this? Hold on just a sec. I want to make sure we get the whole shebang. Okay, so we're going to start on this C sharp, and then you jump up to the F sharp if you are a C string person, and if you're not, you're going to now join us on the G string, and normally we play the A. Remember, we had that note for the D string, for the D chord, excuse me, but now we're going to move it up to A sharp. So that's the borrowed note. That's the note that's not in the scale, but makes it the major 3, and that's the super cool, very important note for this chord and this song, okay? So we've got the A sharp, and then the C sharp, and then you're gonna move over to the D string, good old F sharp that we know and love, okay? And then over on the A string, you're gonna play your low 1 because we can't play open A, and then C sharp, regular F sharp, and then high 3 for the A sharp. Is the major 3 arpeggio. Okay, so we're gonna move ahead, and now we're gonna skip on the C and the G strings, and we're gonna go to the G and the D strings, and we have two different ways to play this major 3 or F sharp major chord. Okay, so you could play the A sharp, the fun special note, with your high first finger and the F sharp, or you could play the F sharp and the C sharp. Okay, so let's grab your fiddle, find an A, and then move it up a half step for the A sharp, and then the F sharp is right next to it. See how this is a half step? So that's kind of nice. Normally you would play an A and an F sharp. That's this, A and the F sharp. We played that for the D chord, but now if you move your finger up, then you've got the major 3. Good, okay, now leave that same F sharp down and put your 3rd finger a whole step away. And that's the F sharp and the C sharp. So we've got our major 3 voicing. Okay, so far we have the 1 chord that we worked on, and we worked on the F sharp chord, okay? And we know that the progression goes 1, yeah, sorry, am I in the right key? 1, 3, 2, 4, 1. So we need to find the 4 chord. Again, you could go to your table, you could click on Jam with Lauren, the logo, and figure out where the 4 chord is. So the 4 chord, you can go, by the way, these are in Roman numerals, and the reason why I do them in Roman numerals, it's a hangover from my classical days, and if you do capital Roman numerals, it signifies that it's a major chord, and if you do lowercase Roman numerals, it's a minor chord, so that's kind of nice. So if we go to the 4, that's 1V in Roman numerals, and you find G major on 68. So here's 68. The 4 chord is the vacation chord. When you need to jump ship and leave the 1 or the home chord, you travel to 4. The 4 chord is my favorite chord. I've said this to you before, haven't I? It's lovely, and you can move back and forth and beyond with the 4. The 4th chord is built from the 4th note of the major scale. In the key of D major, the 4th note is G, so we'll build a G major chord. To spell the G major chord, we'll start on G and collect every other note of the D major scale. GBD, gibada. Okay, and then over here we've got the entire G major chord over the entire instrument. Okay, so the first step would be familiarizing yourself with the arpeggio all over the place. So let's do that. The lowest note is going to be your D on the C string, and then your pinky G, and then open G. Second finger or middle finger B, pinky D, same as open D. Then your ring finger G, pointer B, ring finger D, middle finger G, and then your pinky B. So obviously that takes time to practice, and you should do that. And then we're going to go over to the G and the D strings and find lots of different ways to play the G chord. So you could play the open G and open D, that open G with your ring finger G, the middle finger B with your open D, the middle finger B with your G on the D string, and then your pinky D with the ring finger G. So I'm going to bust through those. So we've got the open G and D, the G and the G octave, then the B and the D, B and the G, and the D and the G. Woo! So 5 different ways to play a 4 chord or a G chord. Okay, so I want to pause for just a sec because the next chord, the 2 chord that we have to learn, is going to come up in the chorus. So I mentioned earlier in the live that there are worksheets in the back of the book. And so I put these in here because once you know all these voicings of the chords, it's kind of useless if you don't know how to put them into practice, okay? So that's what I want to work on with you today. So I put some common chord progressions on this page, I guess it's 128, that happen in a ton of folk and pop music. And so if you're kind of like, okay, I practiced lots of different voicings of my 1, 4, and 5, what do I do now? You can say, okay, let me go through all of these chord progressions that have 1, 4, and 5. Like at the very beginning, I say practice going 1, 4, 1, 5, or 1, 4, 5, 1, or 1, 5, 4, 1. And you practice, you say, okay, I'm going to practice one of those progressions. And how do I do it? I'm going to choose the voicings that I've practiced, and I have to move from a voicing of the 1 chord to a voicing of the 4 chord. And then I have to get the 4 chord maybe back to 1 or on to 5. And how do I get there smoothly? And so I gave you some examples of good voice leading, meaning smoothly getting from each one of those chords to the next. And I also gave you some examples of not doing that very well, bad voice leading. And so that's what this page is all about. Today, I'm going to help you pick good voice leading, okay? So actually I have 2 copies, and so I put this chart. It's hard for you to see that, but if you have this in front of you, if you have the book already and you want to print out one of these pages, that's really fun to do. Just print out like page 131, or just follow along at home, and you can do whatever you'd like. So I wrote in the chord progression of 1, 3, 4, 1, and then the second line, the part that goes in the hollow where I was born, that's 1, 5. So I put the chord progression there, And then I can choose what string I'm going to work on this. So let's practice the D string and the G string right now. That's what I put in. Maybe, just maybe, can you see that a little bit better? Yeah, it's a little bit blurry, but let's make sure that you can see all of the pages, all of it. I can see it on my phone, but I don't know if you guys can see it on the computer. Can you see? There's a lot of this. Maybe you need more of that. Okay. So, we're gonna find ways to play the 1 chord, the 3 chord, 4, 1, and 5 on the D and the G. And so, let's practice, let's memorize at least two voicings of the 1 chord, okay? So we practiced the A and the D. You're gonna use the G and the D string, by the way. Okay, so moving for this whole workshop right now. So if you go to your G and your D strings, you've got 5 different ways to play that D chord, remember, okay? So let's practice playing the A and the D and the A and the F sharp, okay? So why don't we play the A and the F sharp first, all right? So I'm going to write down my G string note is an A and my D string note is an F sharp, okay? So if you grab your fiddle, remember I have that is how I'm playing the D chord at first. And then I'm gonna go to the 3 chord, which was F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. And you could flip back to that page. You could stay on this same F sharp. And then this A moves up to A sharp. So that's really nice voice leading. Yeah, and it sounds great, okay? So this A sharp wants to lead us to the B, and the F sharp wants to lead us to the G. That major 3, oh, did I tell you why the major 3, what the purpose of the major 3 chord is? Major 3 chord always delivers us to 4. It's like the purpose of the major 3 is to get thee to the 4 chord, okay? So the 4 chord, if I move the A sharp up to a B and the F sharp up to a G, we practice that voicing of the B on the G string and the G on the D string. I should have put stickies in these. I'm sorry. Next time I do a live, I'll know to put stickies in. Okay, well, you're gonna take my word for it because we already did it, the G and the B. And then we're gonna go back to the 1 chord that we've got, the A and the F sharp. So far we have 1, 3, 4, 1. Yeah, okay, and then we have a lot of 1. We have 2 more beats of 1. So this is where you could change your voicing. 1, 1, 5. Okay, so we've got the same A with a D, and then the A chord. Oh, do we do 5? Yeah, the A, C sharp, and the E. So you could go through the 5 chord, find the whole arpeggio, the A, the C sharp, and the E, and then come up with a voicing, okay? I want to be aware of the time here. So the A, the C sharp, and the E are the 5 chord, and so we'll use the same E, the same A, excuse me, I'm writing A and looking at E. Okay, so we did that first line, and you'll notice that there's not, for good voice leading, there's not a lot of movement. I mean, the bottom string is going A sharp, B, A, and then this is blank because this chord is for 2 beats, so it's another A, and then another A, and another A. That's the bottom line. So that's actually easy to sing. A sharp, B, A. Pretty easy. The top line doesn't move that much either. We have F sharp, G, F sharp, D, E. Also easy to voice. So if I combine those, and I'll use my bow this time, I just want to make sure that my screen froze. So I want to make sure that everything is still working here. We good? Give me a thumbs up if you guys are still watching. Okay, so we've got the F sharp and the A, slide up to the A sharp, B and G, back to F sharp and A, then keep the A but play the D, and then thanks, Thad. Good, I'm glad it's all working. All right. Hey, Susan, wonderful. Okay, so let's do that again. That same progression. If you want to bow it or you want to pitch it, we're starting with the A and the F sharp. Okay, so we've got 1, slide up, yeah, all right. So that would work if you were hearing somebody sing, "It's been 10 long years since I left my home in the hollow where I was born." And then the lyrics are different, but the chords are the same. It's just the ending that's going to be different. So where the cool fall nights make the wood smoke rise, and the fox hunter blow his horn, or blew his horn. Okay, so the only thing you could choose to voice it differently, or you could do it the same to practice it. Okay, so we'll do it the same for right now. F sharp, A. Actually, do you want to do it differently? Let's do it differently. We have enough time to do it differently. Let's do it differently. So if we started, what if we started, I love that A to the A sharp motion. So we'll do this part at the end differently. So we have A to A sharp and F sharp. This is all the same to B and G. And then let's do this. Yeah, okay, so this G is going to come back to the F sharp, but this time we'll hit the pinky D. And then you could do the same pinky D to C sharp, and then D, and maybe come down to A there. Okay, so I know my voicings, I memorized this, but you would be going through your book and practicing, looking up your voicings and saying, okay, I'm going to choose this voicing. Where's my next closest voicing for the next chord? So I could do the A, and then the E, and the A. Do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? I could do so many things. So, oh. This is not good voicing. And then I want to do this unison here, and then we can hit that. So that's fine. Okay, we'll keep that as it is. So as you can see, there's lots of different fun ways you basically need to do trial and error of, I'm going to see how this feels and how I like it. So this would sound like, yeah, da dee da dee da da dum. Move your F sharp and put your pinky down. Dum ba da da dee da dee dum. And I didn't like it, so I'm going to keep this voicing of the one chord. So I'm going to put the F sharp back. So we have the A and the F sharp, da, the A sharp and the F sharp, B and the G, like we always have had, and you're going to go back to your F sharp, but this time put your pinky. And then another one of those same D chords, and then your F sharp goes down to an E, your pinky goes down to a C sharp, and then your pinky comes back, and you play the unison. And then you could go down to the A and the D if you'd like, or keep it there. So if we did the whole verse, if we followed along this, so we have, it's been 10, I might not sing the words properly, I'm going to focus on the chord progression. Da da dee da da dum, da ding da dum da da dee da ding da da dum, dee da 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 and the 2 chord coming up next, okay? So those are the only other chords that we need. So we know what the 5 chord is, the A, C sharp, and the E. So let's start on, sorry, I didn't fill these in, the D string and the G string, D string and the G string. We'll start on the A and the E, the most classic. Da, 5 chord voicing, the A chord. Da, 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 dum, ba, dee, dum. Or da, 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 dee, dum, ba, dee, dum. Da, or da. Let's do that, okay, for the 2 chord. So let's find what the major 2 is all about. So you'd go to your table of contents and say, this is, now we'll build a major 2, still based on the 2nd note of the major scale. The chord uses a borrowed note, one that doesn't belong to the D scale, similar to how we used a borrowed note for the major 3. The chord uses a borrowed note that doesn't belong to the D scale. The scholarly term for this would be chromatic. And when chords are built on notes that naturally exist in the scale, we call that diatonic. If we borrow a note from a different scale to achieve a new chord quality, quality means major or minor, we're adding in another half step to the mix, and therefore it becomes chromatic. The major 2 always likes to head to the 5 chord. That's because the major 2 is the 5 of the 5. So if we did this in letters, the 5 chord right now in D is A. A's 5 chord is an E. And the 2nd note of the D scale, the 2 chord, is an E. And so that's why the major 2 always functions as the 5 of the 5. And a major 2 will always lead you to a 5 chord. Another fancy term for this is secondary dominant. Be sure to check out how the 5 chord functions on page 80. So in the key of D major, the 2nd note is E, so we'll build an E major chord. And to spell an E major chord, we start on E and collect every other note of the D major scale, E, G, B. But as we know, this spells an E minor chord, assuming that you did the E minor chord previously, if you were working through the book. Okay, so since it spells an E minor chord, we'll raise the middle note, or the 3rd of the chord, to G sharp. The G sharp is the borrowed chromatic note. Now we've built a major chord based on the 2nd note of the scale. So you could go through and find your map of the entire E major chord, okay? And right now, we're going to look at the voicings on the G and the D string. You could play a G sharp and an E, a B and an E, or a B and a G sharp. So that would be the G sharp and the E, the B and the same E, or that same B and this G sharp. So let's do that together. Can we see this page? Yes, okay. Let's play the G sharp on the G string. That's your low one. We've been playing around with our first finger a lot today, saying like how the A sharp gets lifted up. The first finger went higher for the A sharp. Now we're going lower for the G sharp. There's your G sharp. And then the E is a half step away. Normally we play this E on the D string with your first finger, but since we're playing the G sharp with your first finger, we're going to play the E with our 2nd finger as a half step. So this would be 1, and that would be 2, pointer and middle. There's an E major chord, or a major 2 chord in this case. Okay, so now let's go back and play the E how we normally do, and we'll play it here with our 2nd finger, middle finger on the G string, and that's a B. If you keep playing that middle finger on the B and you raise your ring finger on the D string, you've got the G sharp on the D. Okay, so those 3 different voicings of a major 2 chord. So if I go back to where I was mapping out Old Homeplace and I say, I really want to play the 2 chord with a G sharp, the low first finger on the G string. So if I put that G sharp there with the E, I can say, all right, I know that G sharp is going to lead me back to the A and the E, because we know that the G sharp wants to go up, the major 2. Okay, so now we can figure out what voicing of the 1 chord we want. How can we easily get from here to maybe that? So I think that would be the quote unquote easiest. I hope I'm singing that melody right. Okay, so we're gonna play the A on the G string and the open D. So A and E for the 5 chord, first finger on the G and the D. Then roll off, so you have the D with that same A. Now you're gonna slide your finger back from the A to the G sharp and put your second finger on the E. And then you can put your first finger, slide it back up on both. So if I did that with the bow, I'm trying to do them from different angles so everybody can see. Okay, so we have the A and the E. That's the A chord or the 5 chord. Roll off to the D. Okay, now your first finger is going to slide down to a G sharp. Add your middle second finger to the D string for an E, and then slide your first finger back up on both strings. So, again, the idea of voice leaning is that you could sing those parts. So the lower note would be A, G sharp, A. Pretty easy to sing. Or E, D, E, E. There's not a lot of movement, and that's what's going to make it sound the best and the easiest to play. And then the good news is that the third and the fourth phrase of the chorus are the same melody and chord progression as the third and fourth phrase or phrases of the verse. So this line is the first and second of the verse, third and fourth of the verse, first and second of the chorus, third and fourth of the chorus. So this middle line is going to take care of the ending phrase, the ending half for both the verse and the chorus. Okay, so if I did this line leading into this line, I would have the entire chorus. So let's try that. What have they done to the old home place? Why did they tear it down? And why did I leave a bomb dum dum da 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 dum? Sorry, I'm paying more attention to the chords than the words because I'm a fiddle player. I'm not necessarily a singer. All right, so let's leave you today with me playing with my bow this chord progression that we worked out for Old Homeplace. And let's see if I have my words. I'm gonna try. I want you to see it. Okay, let's see if I can do this. And hopefully you guys will try along with me at home. So, it's been 10 long years since I left my home, and I was born where the cool nights make the wood smoke rise, and the fox hunter blows his horn. And now the next steps would be obviously really trying to memorize what you chose and then saying, hey, can I make different choices on the G and the D string? Could I choose the D and the A string? Or if I'm a 5-string player, can I do these and then increase my range by adding the C and the G strings? And this book helps you do all of that. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. And you can reach me from the Jam with Lauren site. I send out an email every Friday morning. So if you want to go and sign up for my email, it's really just kind of like a little, it's kind of like stage banter from me every Friday. Sometimes I send you links of things that I'm listening to. Sometimes I let you know if I've taught a lesson like this one today. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks to my Jam fam, my Jam with Lauren students who tuned in today. And thank you also for checking out the D book. And until next time, I hope you are well. Thanks. Bye.